So I wanted to come through and I wanted to have a little chat this morning. It's 3 in the morning and I feel like chatting. So I was watching Candyman, the horror film, the original one. And I was looking at the symbology and examining and observing the symbology in that movie. And then it started making me think about another movie that is totally different in regards to its theme and, what the movie was about. I started thinking about New Jack City. Now, there's a 3-year difference in when New Jack City came out versus when Candyman came out. Candyman came out in 1992. New Jack City came out in 1990. No, I'm sorry. New Jack City came out in 1991, I believe. Candyman came out in 1992. So they came out around the same time. Maybe just a year apart. But I really want to talk about New Jack City. That is one of my all-time favorite movies, New Jack City. And for those people who don't know what it is, everybody should know what New Jack City is. It's about a gangster named Nino Brown. Him and his drug cartel, they take over, a particular building in New York, and they just have this massive drug cartel, and they doing the damn motherfucking thing. You feel what I'm saying? The first thing I want to say is this. We've been bamboozled to believe that the government gives a fuck whether people use drugs or not. The only reason that there is a war on drugs is because the greedy motherfuckers at the top, they don't want that money that niggas make to go without being taxed. It's all about money and untaxed money, and they don't want niggas having that type of motherfucking money. That is why they threw a lot of the drug kingpins, in jail, or they killed them. It has nothing to do with them trying to save humanity. It has nothing to do with them trying to save people from themselves or trying to save people from being on drugs. It has nothing to do with that. They just don't want black people, black men, making that type of motherfucking money without it being taxed. It's all about money that goes untaxed. That's it. Spirit showed me that. May be old to some people, but that's what I'm picking up. When you really examine the relationship between Nino Brown and G Money, who was his partner played by Alan Payne, you really begin to see the symbology unfold. Nino Brown was a form of Tefnu and Shoe. The relationship between G Money and Nino Brown was symbolically representing Tefnu and Shoe, or the Murti twins, twin deities, and they were brothers. That's what that was really symbolically representing. And if you noticed, at that time in the 1990s, for those of us who are old enough, I'm old, I'm 40, so I know, because I was around during that time. For those of us who know, black people back then had a totally different energy. I know Nino Brown, that character, was a horrible motherfucker. He was a horrible motherfucker, and he was a horrible representation. But sometimes you have to put things aside. And when I say, when I say put things aside, sometimes you have to put aside your emotion and put aside what you're seeing on the surface level and look beyond that. Nino Brown was a horrible motherfucker. He was a fucking monster. But let's look at that for a minute. And this ties back into Candyman. Okay? It ties back into Candyman because the symbology in Candyman is Candyman was symbolically representing Osiris, the sleeping subconscious mind. And they had to shut that energy down in order to make this new type of black men, which are bitch made, watered down, and more subservient to the faces of this institution or the so-called leaders of this institution that we live up under. That's all I'm going to say on that. Because see, black men back during the 90s still had that rebel, revolutionary type of fucking energy. And yeah, it may have come out in the form of being drug dealers and shit like that, which I'm not condoning whatsoever. I'm looking at the fucking energy of Nino Brown. Had that energy been applied to in another type of way, that nigga would have been a powerful motherfucking revolutionary. But what they did was they showed that energy in a negative way, in a negative aspect, which ultimately further degraded and emasculated the image of black men. See, it's not always about a black man putting on a dress or kissing another man that may emasculate the heterosexual black man's image. It can also be him acting out in ways that could be looked at as being, bitch made. Like his character, Nino Brown, he did a whole bunch of fucked up cowardly ass shit to people. He killed a school teacher who turned out to be Ice-T's mother. He did a lot of fucked up ass shit. He held a little girl in front of him. When there was a shootout, he used this little girl's body as a shield. He did a lot of fucked up ass shit. A lot. So there are different ways of shutting down, certain energies, within the subconscious mind of black men and black people ultimately in general. So putting all that shit to the side, like I said, if Nino Brown was a real character, which it probably was, that energy, and let's look at the name Nino Brown. See, I'm looking at the symbology. Nino Brown, when you break that down numerically, that's Tefnu and Shu. Didn't I just tell y'all that his relationship between him and his partner, G Money, that was symbolic of Tefnu and Shu. Wesley Snipes is a form of Tefnu and Shu, aka the Murti twins. He's a form of that energy when you break down his motherfucking name. So it makes sense why they picked him to play that role. But when you go back to the fucking 90s, black men were a lot more revolutionary in how they thought. It wasn't until the late 90s that I really began to realize a shift in black men's energy. They started talking all this motherfucking shit about how, others were better and how others' lives mattered more, and, just their energy changed. And when their energy changed, so did the things that they were saying. You feel what I'm saying? And their actions changed. But when I go back and look at movies like New Jack City, and New Jack City came on last week and I recorded it because I wasn't home, but I was flipping through the channels and I saw that it was going to be on, and I said, oh shit, I gotta record my motherfucking movie. I'm probably going to end up buying that movie and keeping it on hand, because they cut out so many of the good parts on TV because they can't show that, But I recorded it because, I wasn't home. And, so many things have happened, from in the 90s up until this point. I was making a point and it kind of slipped me. That's how I know it's spiritual what I'm talking about. Because when you're talking and then it slips your mind, that's spirit. That's how the spirit works. But no, I noticed a difference in the behavioral patterns of black men in particular, and I'm not talking good or bad. You know what I mean? This ain't no good or bad thing, or me trying to come down on other black men. It's not that. I'm just looking at the difference in the behavioral patterns. Because see, that is what I do. I'm the occult view. I give my occult assessment. And although Nino Brown was a horrible motherfucker, he was a fucking genius, and he was a fucking revolutionary. That's a revolutionary type of motherfucking energy. And they had to shut that down. And they shut it down. They started shutting it down in Candyman in the early 90s, but a lot of people missed that, because shutting down that Osiris energy, which is the hidden aspect of you, which is your subconscious mind, which is your real mind, by shutting down that energy, there's a saying, that's like a giant walking around without his one eye in the middle of his head. But they're talking about the third eye when they're referring to that. But you can see the change in how niggas were in the 90s up until the late 90s. I'm talking about the early 90s, excuse me. You can see the change from how niggas were in the early 90s up until this time frame that we're in now. You can see the metamorphosis. You can see it in how black men act. Back in the 90s, black men did not play with no motherfucking white boys. They weren't about all this love and light and all this forgive and all that forgive and forget bullshit. And don't get me wrong, when I say that, I'm speaking in terms when it's of a detriment of your own motherfucking spirit and mind. You're forgiving people who want to kill you. That's something totally different. But then, you niggas will go around holding a grudge against another black person, or whatever the case may be, but you'll forgive white boys. See, in that movie in New Jack City, those niggas didn't fucking play with no motherfucking white people. They didn't play. When Nino Brown and his crew, or his drug cartel, when they had a dispute with these Italian drug cartel people, the Italians came and shot them up, and Nino Brown and them niggas, they went back and retaliated. No motherfucking problem. There was no thought in that. Now you can't even get niggas to even speak up against, a white person when they doing some fucked up shit. They have totally fucking different energy now. And that's because, like I said, it's a different species of niggas that exists now. Totally different species. They really shut that energy down in Candyman Part 2. They shut it down really good in Candyman Part 2. They shut it down really good. And then they shut it down even better in Part 3. Because remember in Candyman 3, what was it called? Day of the Dead? They removed any information or any context. They destroyed any memory, basically, of the Candyman. And like I said, Candyman is connected to that character, that energy, that is connected to the subconscious mind of the black man. That is the subconscious mind, Osiris, that is sleeping and hidden within you. So when they shut that energy down, it kind of gave birth to a new species of niggas that they had more control over. And that is why we see a lot of the shit that we see now. But anyway, I just wanted to come through and make this quick video. I just thought it was interesting. I was thinking about New Jack City And obviously, because I wanted to look at that, it must be something spiritual behind that. And I think that's why I'm talking about it tonight at 3:33 in the morning. Because I watched it a week ago. I recorded it a week ago, New Jack City. Excuse me. And I'm just now talking about it. But I was looking at Candyman. And see, here's the thing. Just a little bit of advice, to heterosexual black men. You can invoke that energy and that spirit of Nino Brown. You can invoke that motherfucking energy and use it for yourself. Black men, heterosexual black men, you can use that fucking energy for yourself to help you get things moving in the direction that you wanted to get it going. You can invoke that motherfucking energy yourself. It is very, very motherfucking simple. Okay? And if you want to know how to do that, you got to hit me the fuck up on Patreon. Anyway, this is Sia Grant, aka The Occult View. And that's basically all I had to say tonight.